Wolcen is an experimental Gothic-themed ARPG with no distinct classes, instead allowing you to freely allocate skill points in whichever way you desire. Its apocalyptic setting may be familiar, but some of its mechanics are a departure from what you may be expecting in an action RPG. For instance, you can shapeshift into a powerful celestial being called a Celestial Incarnation, giving you unique combat abilities regardless of your character build. There's also a subclass system of sorts, but it's determined by a set of rotating wheels that allow for 21 permutations, tying directly into the free-flowing skill system mentioned earlier. Most interesting is Wolcen's resource management system, which requires you to counterbalance your alternating rage and willpower resources during combat rather than draw your spells and other combat abilities from a single mana pool. Enjoyable for its gameplay and multiple upgrade opportunities, Wolcen Lords of Mayhem provides plenty of fun and replayability to enjoy, but sadly, it does suffer from large quantities of gameplay bugs that ultimately can lead to frustration when they are constantly making themselves known. If you're able to look past the sizable problems mentioned and want something to play where you can loot your heart out, this may be the game for you, especially if you're a fan of action RPGs. After its horrible launch a few years ago, a lot had happened. Many bugs have been fixed, not all though, and server stability is fine, probably due to far less players than on launch period. A very small team of about 10 people with a comparatively meager Kickstarter budget set up an impressive game that attracted a peak of almost 130,000 players simultaneously on Steam over the launch weekend. Unfortunately, there are still a few nasty bugs in the game. However, it looks cool, it has a smooth gameplay, and the free class system is well designed. Most of the bugs that were haunting the game for a long time are fixed. Fans of legends in the hack-and-slash genre like Diablo, Grim Dawn, and Torchlight will find plenty to love in Undecember, as it takes the best aspects of these games for one unforgettable game. From countless enemies on screen to flashy and powerful abilities to epic gear that's just waiting to be found to terrifying bosses, Undecember is filled to the brim with hours and hours of content that will keep even the most hardcore of adventurers satisfied. These skills range from fireballs that will melt any foe to deadly icicles that will pierce the most sturdy armor to lightning that will stop even the strongest enemies in their tracks. Gear is just as important as leveling up and choosing the best skills, as it will keep you alive as you work to take down the evil god serpents. By leveling up, players will be able to equip powerful gear that will bring with it a level of protection needed to survive. The problem with Undecember is largely due to the in-game store and the general monetization. Pretty much every single item in the store is said to be quite overpriced, such as the quite useful inventory expansions. And there is also quite a lot of pay-to-win. If that wasn't bad enough, Undecember is also plagued by numerous bugs according to some users. The interface in particular is criticized by many players, which in many cases simply does not work properly. The various bugs can probably be fixed, but monetization will probably be with us for the long term. Overall, this is of course a shame, as the gameplay of Undecember is praised by many users. But the extremely greedy cash store takes the fun out of the game. Death Must Die is not directly a Diablo clone and more a roguelike than an RPG. But this is in the list because it delivers some good old flair of an old Diablo with the hunt for loot. This title blends the roguelike survival elements of Vampire Survivors with the god boons of Hades and equipment hunting of Diablo. You start the game in a hub area, initially with only one class available, Averon the Knight. As you progress, new characters with unique playstyles and perks join your quest. There are currently 5 characters to choose from, each offering a different approach to the game. The combat controls are straightforward, with both mouse and keyboard and controller support, but your primary focus is on juggling basic attacks and dashes, with snagging new gear pickups, and most importantly, surviving. Each run in Death Must Die is a 20-minute survival challenge against a constant stream of enemies. The arena you explore is never-ending and randomly generated, filled with shrines, chests, and tombs. Despite a limited pool of enemies, there's a decent variety in their mechanics and patterns, offering a satisfying level of challenge, and the boss battles are well choreographed. The game features a boon system similar to Hades, where killing enemies drops XP shards. Collecting these shards lets you level up and choose boons from various gods. each with their unique themes and upgrades, and there are some great synergies between these. The equipment system adds an additional layer to the game's rogue-like mechanics, with different rarities affecting your stats and chances of obtaining higher quality items, and is the primary chase factor of the game. Torchlight 2 is based on the Diablo 2 format, but it's a lot more whimsical. Its low-stakes setting is very clearly meant to serve gameplay rather than story, but it's a bit easier to stomach than the darker tones of Diablo 2, Grim Dawn, or some of the others on this list. It offers a unique pet system that allows you to sell your loot and manage your inventory without needing to traipse back to town to talk to a merchant NPC each time your inventory fills up. This keeps the flow of gameplay rolling, which is great because Torchlight 2 has plenty of quests to do and dungeons to explore. Its simplistic story spans 4 main acts, but there is enough side content to keep you busy for quite some time. Torchlight 2 also offers a much simpler selection of classes than other ARPGs. There are only 4 to choose from in this case, which may make it more approachable. Customization is both skill-based and gear-based, allowing you to allocate points into a skill tree as you level up and unlock certain abilities via the equipment you find throughout your adventures. There are no limits on difficulty levels here. If you want to start on Veteran or Nightmare, you can. Difficulty in multiplayer is handled well, with monsters increasing in toughness depending on the number of players. While it's certainly not necessarily to enjoy what Torchlight Tech has to offer, there can be no denying the enjoyment of playing the game with others, and it adds a more than welcome dimension to the game. Basic gameplay follows the template used by other isometric and top-down action RPGs. Players move using the left mouse buttons and click on enemies to attack. There are a wide number of skills and spells available, with numerous ways to activate them through various hotkeys and on-screen icons. The game is more than welcoming for both fans of the original and newcomers to the series, and is high amongst the better gaming experiences I've had this year. It might not bring anything particularly new to the genre, but those who choose to pick it up will be provided with superb value for their money. Titan Quest is a classic ARPG that arguably doesn't get enough love, despite reviewing decently at launch. Taking place in an Age of Mythology-esque setting which includes ancient Greece, Egypt, and parts of Asia, this is more gods and monsters than gothic apocalypse. Regardless, Titan Quest was renowned when it launched in 2006 for featuring a slower, more tactical approach to gameplay. Over a decade and a half later, it's finally been given a fresh coat of paint in the Titan Quest Anniversary Edition. It's lauded for its mod support as well. Similarly to Diablo 3, the multiplayer sees you drop in and out of your friends' adventures to help one another through the story. Teaming up adds a much-needed second level to the action, and really allows the various classes to shine together. For example, the Hunter has a snare skill that can hold an enemy in place, while if you choose to wield Dream Magic, you can lay down a blanket of debuffs and negative status effects to make tougher enemies seem much squishier and therefore easier for the sword wielders to deal with. Titan Quest ticks all the necessary boxes. There's loads of loot in the form of weapons, armor, trinkets, and upgrades, and a pile of enemy types to wade through, including random elites and mini-bosses. The environments may not be the most beautiful we've seen, but they vary enough between locales that you won't quickly become bored of seeing the same backdrops, and the combat starts to come into its own within just the first few levels. You'll unlock higher difficulty settings on completion too, so the replayability is decent, particularly if you're the sort who craves a real challenge. Grim Dawn offers a ton of content, skills points, gear, and customization as you travel through the dark, gloomy, and gory world, filled with undead, witchcraft, sorcery, demons, knights, and everything in between. This is a must-have for any fan of the hack-and-slash action RPG genre, or someone just looking for a Diablo alternative. As the name states, this game is all about the grim undead, witchcraft, sorcery, demons, knights, and everything in between, all wrapped up in loads of gory gameplay. The animations and graphics are a bit rough, but the gameplay makes up for it tenfold. One amazing feature I wish all hack-and-slash games had was the item drop filters. Here you can set anything to your needs to make sure you don't get loot. You don't want cluttering the floor. There is also a reputation system, not only for discount in towns, but the monsters you kill as well. The more monsters you kill of a certain type, the more hostile you will become with them. The more hostile you become, the more will spawn as you encounter them, thereby increasing the difficulty as well as XP gained in small increments. So a very nice feature, really. There is a devotion skill tree on top of the 2 class skill trees as well. This is based on the star constellations of creatures and weapons such as hawks and hammers, which unlock even more passive upgrades, and as well as a little bit extra when you complete a certain constellation. The developers have done a great job at the level progression, making it fast enough that you are leveling up every 10 mins or so, giving you that satisfaction of distributing skill points and unlocking new abilities often enough, while not making it too fast either. With 2 expansions and an added Horde Mode DLC, there is a ton of content to get through, so check this one out. Lost Ark is an MMO with ARPG elements inspired by games such as Diablo and Path of Exile. Lost Ark also features a robust crafting and customization system, allowing players to create and improve their gear. Unfortunately, character classes are locked to gender as of now, which is a shame since I would have loved to play as a male mage. Combat in Lost Ark feels very different to most MMOs due to the isometric top-down graphics and focus on chaining skills together. This makes Lost Ark feel more like an ARPG, such as Diablo or Path of Exile, which is a refreshing change for the MMO genre. You spend most of your time pummeling waves of demons into the dirt or parkouring across terrain in the style of Devil May Cry. As in most RPGs, leveling up unlocks new and devastating ways to juggle, counter, or combo your foes. Lost Ark has a huge amount of content with over 30 hours of main story quests, tons of side quests, dungeons, and more. The game also features an endgame with various activities such as world bosses, raids, and PvP. Lost Ark is definitely a game that will keep you busy for a long time. Lost Ark's character mechanics and combat unfold at a steady pace. The grind to level 50 teaches the basics. But the endgame is the true challenge. Players can even own their own strongholds, which are islands that work as the game's player housing. Lost Ark's stronghold system is one of the most in-depth player housing systems I've ever seen in an MMO. Players can build and upgrade structures in their strongholds, which all have different uses. Lost Ark is a pay-to-win game. Players who spend money will progress through the game more quickly than those who don't. The in-game items that can be purchased with real money can give players advantages in-game. With all of its endless intricacies, its variety of endgame content, and of course, its stylish action, Lost Ark feels like it's destined to remain something of a phenomenon for quite some time. Getting to the endgame can sometimes feel like a chore, and the game's economy can be a headache unto itself. But the rewards upon arrival are worth the trek several times over. Diablo 4 is and remains a very good action RPG that impresses above all with its superbly staged campaign, outstanding gameplay, and high-quality visuals. Diablo 4 takes the strategy of refining things the series already did so well rather than giving it a more substantial overhaul, and that careful and reverent path has shaped this massive sequel into one of the most polished ARPGs ever created, which makes slicing through the legions of the damned a hell of a good time. The game has nothing to hide in terms of content, at least if you belong to the group of gamers who primarily want to experience the story and then only want to go on a slaying spree every now and then. However, for hardcore gamers who want to improve their characters down to the last detail and expect exciting content and heaps of new loot, even at the highest levels, Diablo 4 proves to be a bit of a disappointment in the long run. Blizzard still needs to put a bit more work into the class and skill balancing, which was already criticized in the test. There are still classes or builds, such as the Screwblade Huntress, that are extremely overpowered and can even dismantle raid bosses in just a few seconds. This is not too bad so far because all classes are very playable and fun, but the power ratios should be better balanced by the time the rankings are introduced. Overall, it would be nice to see much more endgame content in the future, especially completely new game modes and new motivators such as armor sets or the runes familiar from the previous games. It is also important that the seasons bring more content that can remain in the game afterwards. Only then will Diablo 4 have the chance to build up an extensive and motivating endgame over time, as in Path of Exile. Last Epoch offers a solid and enjoyable ARPG experience with its unique gameplay mechanics, deep itemization, and engaging endgame content. Whether you're a fan of the genre or new to ARPGs, Last Epoch is definitely worth considering. With its affordable price point and constant updates, the game has the potential to provide hours of entertainment and replayability. In Last Epoch, players can choose between an offline or online mode, catering to different playstyles and preferences. The offline mode allows for complete offline play, making it ideal for those who want to play on the go or without an internet connection. The online mode offers the opportunity for multiplayer and social interactions with other players. One of the standout features of Last Epoch is its respec system. Players have the flexibility to reallocate skill points and experiment with different builds without feeling punished for their choices. This system, combined with the game's skill tree, provides depth and customization options for players to create unique playstyles. The itemization and crafting systems in Last Epoch are extensive and rewarding. Players can find a variety of gear, ranging from standard items to unique and legendary items. The unique items in the game feel impactful and can enhance specific playstyles or builds. Crafting in Last Epoch allows players to upgrade and modify their gear. The forging potential system adds a layer of depth to crafting, requiring players to carefully manage their resources and make strategic decisions. Additionally, the game features a loot filter system, allowing players to customize their loot drops and prioritize specific item types. The campaign in Last Epoch offers an enjoyable experience, although it may not be the main selling point for players seeking a deep and engaging story. The focus of the game lies more in the endgame content, particularly the monolith system. The monolith system provides a mapping-style experience where players can progress through different monoliths, each offering unique modifiers and rewards. This system adds replayability and longevity to the game, allowing players to continue progressing their characters and exploring new challenges. Path of Exile is entering the 10th year of its life, and so far, no other action RPG can match its scope and breadth of content. Seasonal leagues and expansions did not each come and go after a few months. Instead, most of their mechanics were integrated into Path of Exile's very core, morphing an already complex experience into an almost untamable beast. For better and worse, streamlining has not been one of developer Grinding Gear Games' priorities. You've probably seen or caught wind of Path of Exile's passive skill tree. It's so massive that it has its own built-in search bar, allowing each of the 7 base character classes to travel through hundreds of upgrade nodes. Reaching the endgame grants you access to the Atlas of Worlds, which was introduced in an expansion of the same name in late 2016. It's a massive tree of sorts, consisting of over 100 maps. Players spend resources to both access and empower these single-run areas before fighting through them for improved loot. It's an enticing system that grants you full control over the difficulty and the resulting risk-reward factor. Considering how live service games tend to vault past mechanics or expansions in the interest of onboarding new players as smoothly as possible, Path of Exile is all the more notable for its dedication to building a legacy of lasting content. It doesn't mean that it's impossible for a newcomer to jump into the game in 2023. The release of leagues, which last for 3 to 4 months and have players starting a character from scratch, makes for a great opportunity to do so. But for seasoned players, there's always something new around the corner, always a backlog of expansions to delve into. Just recently, Grinding Gear added a roguelike style mode in the Forbidden Sanctum League.